Will Benson delivered the knockout blow on Sunday, but it's a trend that this Reds lineup has been building here recently that's led them to their recent success.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Steven Offenbaker. He is Jeff Carr. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We love the Reds. We love baseball. We love talking about baseball. We love talking about the Reds. And most of all, we love talking about those things with you. On today's show, the Reds are heading up to Boston with an opportunity to win their 7th out of 9 series in a row, I guess. What a time to be alive. The Reds are on a roll. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the show. Also, the Reds have officially sent Jeimer Candelario on his way. He is no longer a member of this team. That's a big deal. We're going to talk about that coming up a little bit later. But where we're going to start today is the Reds are doing the thing. They are having great at-bats. They are having great results. They are winning baseball games. It is a fun time right now to be following the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to get into all of that on today's show that's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets back when your first $5 bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com to get started today. And where we are going to get started, Jeff, is with these at-bats, with the way that this team is performing. Look, you and I, we haven't been talking for a week. You did the front half last week. I did the back half last week. A lot has happened. But what has happened, Jeff, is the Reds, they're back up, baby.
6 out of 7 series wins. It's great to see. And this is the meat of their schedule, right? This is the teeth of the schedule. This is the part where we were like, just tread water, man. Just stay around 500, and then let's see what we can do that final week before the All-Star break. They're doing the thing, and they're doing it well. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the lineup is just having productive at-bats. And what I mean by that is not necessarily that every at-bat ends up in a hit, not every at-bat ends up in a home run, but they end up with long at-bats where they're battling. And it's led by the man, Elly De La Cruz. Don't get me wrong. My dude Will Benson had an amazing game. The 3 hits. He had the walk-off single there in the bottom of the 9th to give them the win. But Elly started off the 9th inning with a crazy battle that forced Robert Suarez to throw a lot of pitches. He had an at-bat earlier in the game against the starter Stephen Kolek, where I think it was like a 10 or 11 pitch at-bat that Elly fought through. He is seeing the ball so well, and it's infectious with the rest of the lineup. In fact, the guy who leads this lineup in pitches seen per at-bat, Gavin Lux, drew a key walk after Austin Hayes had a quick pop out that you started to think, all right, Elly got on. Now what are we doing here? Are we gonna waste this again because Will Benson hit a leadoff double in the 8th inning and did not come around to score? Are the Reds gonna blow this opportunity again? No. They had some good at-bats from Gavin Lux, Spencer Steer, and then ultimately Will Benson to win the game. I've been so impressed with how this lineup has looked, where I think early on, Steve, this season, we were talking about it seems like they're looking at too many strikes. They're letting too many opportunities go by. They are now marrying the opportunistic hitting with the let's take long at bats and force guys to throw pitches.
Do not underestimate how important Elly's at bat in the 9th inning was yesterday. The fact that he went out there and made Suarez battle, made Suarez look human, that set the tone for the 9th inning. And Elly's at bats really the whole day yesterday, Jeff. 3 out of 4 at bats, 4 out of 5 at bats, all went 3-2 counts. Something along those lines. The only one that didn't go 3-2 was the hit up the middle, right? Like that's the only one that didn't go full count. So Elly is definitely he is definitely seeing the ball well. He is definitely seeing the strike zone well. This is the next evolution of Elly De La Cruz. The patient, make him work for it. Elly. He understands, I think, now that where he sits in this team and where he sits in this lineup is he's the guy that's not getting the pitch. He's the guy that has to choose his spot. He's the guy that has to be patient and wait for somebody to make a mistake. And the fact that he's figuring that out it makes this whole lineup better because we saw it yesterday. He set the table, he got on base, he did the things, and ultimately it led to a Reds win. Elly being as patient as he was in that first at bat in the ninth inning there really led to the opportunity for the Reds to win this game.
And that, yeah,
Elly a year ago doesn't do that. Elly 2 years ago definitely doesn't do that. It's the evolution. It's where we've needed Elly to go, and a tremendous at bat yesterday.
And it was something too that it kind of stems from an article that I read in the Inquirer last week where they got a really in-depth report from Gavin Lux and Jose Trevino about a players only meeting back at the beginning of the month that really sort of changed everything, where Gavin Lux and Jose Trevino were noticing that they would come back to the dugout after being out in the field for an at bat or whatever. And they noticed that guys were just sitting on iPads, watching their at bats, just absolutely focused in, tunnel vision, trying to watch every single thing that they did wrong so that they could fix it their next time up. And they're just like, guys, let's get up on the rail. Let's be in every pitch. Let's stop worrying about the iPads and studying every single thing. We could do that in between ball games. Let's check out what the pitcher's doing. Let's communicate. And you saw that in the ninth inning where Austin Hayes was going up there super aggressive, swinging at everything, and Suarez was not giving him anything in the zone. And then Gavin Lux comes up, and he's just like, I ain't taking this bat off my shoulder till you throw me a strike. And he ends up on first base rather quickly because of it. There's so much communication now that goes on between these guys that this is a group effort. The whole thing. And I think there's a lot of folks that can belabor this point when it comes to the Reds struggling to score runs in any given game where they're just like, how many times do the Reds strike out looking? My goodness. Well, for those out there that are worried about that, they do lead the league in strikes looking. 28% of the strikes that they have are because they watch it go by. But that's not because they don't recognize it. That's because they're making the pitcher work. They're communicating. They're like, look, this is coming at you. Lay off that. Wait for this. And that's where we see this opportunistic hitting really come to be. Like, Steve, I don't believe for a moment that watching the first 8 innings of Sunday's game, I believe that the Reds deserved to win that game. They were leaving guys on base. There was a couple of defensive miscues that I wasn't very happy about. And overall, some not great pitching decisions as well. Why do we keep putting in Ryan Richardson with a tenuous lead? Like, stop putting him in these spots. But they were able to make it happen in the ninth inning, and that's all that matters.
Well, okay, that is all that matters ultimately. But we're going to circle back to that Ryan Richardson thing somewhere along the way because even Twitter was on that yesterday. Jeff, Twitter X, there was a couple comments. I don't know if you saw that, but why basically saying the same thing. We're going to have to dig into that.
Yeah,
this is what I know. Nobody's going to dampen how I feel right now. This Reds team is very fun, Jeff. I don't know. I'm having fun. You know what? To quote our good friend Mo Egger, I'm having fun. The Reds are fun right now. Interesting thing yesterday, heading into even the ninth inning, I was still on board with they can win this game.
Yeah,
they can do this. As frustrating as the day before was, where they let one get away, I was on board with they can win this game. And it's been a minute since I've had that kind of faith in this team. It's been a minute since I felt like, they can rally. They can do it. And here we are. You talked about this being the toughest stretch of the schedule, this being the toughest part. And you and I have been very much just be 500. Jeff, they have an opportunity tonight to go to a season high 5 games over 500 if they get a win to start this series in Boston, which we're going to talk about coming up in a little bit.
Right.
But this is, I don't know if they sit 4 or 5 games heading into this 7-game stretch where they're clearly, okay, let me not jinx it, where they should win 4 or 5 out of 7 against the Marlins and the Rockies. This is a game-changing opportunity we now find the Cincinnati Reds in. And I don't know how to act because this is not what we do. This is not what we do around here. And this team is exceeding my expectations. And they're doing it in the most frustrating way possible, but they're doing it. And I don't know how to act, Jeff. This is not how we talk about things around here. This is not how we act as Cincinnati sports fans, but the Reds are on a roll, and I'm excited.
Well, and just like you mentioned, I mean, the confidence that we have in this team to come back, that's not something that we've had in years past. And in years past, what happened on Saturday, where they end up losing that game because they gave up a few runs at the wrong time, looked like what was going to happen on Sunday. But I had, some hope that they were going to turn things around. And that's just how things are so different under Terry Francona. And I believe that there was even a roster decision that continues to point why things are so different for the Reds under Terry Francona, and it's all about Jeimer Candelario. Tell you that next. The Reds season is rolling right along, and you can make every game more exciting over on FanDuel. They've got all kinds of daily prop bets, and whether you're talking about point spreads, money lines, all that great stuff, FanDuel has it all. There's also Dinger Tuesdays, where they bump up the odds on some home runs. It's a lot of fun to jump in on FanDuel for every Reds matchup. Just like tonight, I'm looking at Chase Burns going up against the Red Sox lineup. FanDuel has his over-under on strikeouts at 6.5. I think I'm going to hit the over on that. I get it. His second start might see a little bit more of a struggle as the Red Sox actually have some tape on him, but I still think he's going to get them strikeouts. Over 6.5 strikeouts for Chase Burns tonight against those Red Sox. Red Sox ace Garrett Crochet on the mound. That's going to be a tough one for this Reds lineup, as good as they've been going. So I'm staying away from anything else but Chase Burns over under strikeouts, 6.5. Take the over on FanDuel. And hey, if you're a new user and your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. Head on over to FanDuel right now. They're America's #1 sportsbook for a whole bunch of really good reasons. Thanks for always making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine and making us your first listen. If you do, appreciate that. If you don't, and if you're not an everydayer, you should become one by hitting that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. All right,
real
Steve,
quick, I want you to know that nobody has tape on anybody anymore. That's just not a thing that happens, sir. The day
don't
of the
underestimate
VCR is
baseball.
nobody is popping a tape in the VCR is what I'm saying.
Don't underestimate Major League Baseball when it comes to slow progression. No, but I do know this, Steve. Speaking of slow progression, the Cincinnati Reds made a decision last week that surprised me, because I think you and I both were under the opinion of there's too much money still on the table. There's still too much that the Reds need to give Jeimer Candelario for them to just cut ties with him. But they did. And nobody took that contract. Nobody took the DFA and said, we'll give you a bag of peanuts to take on the money that you owe Jeimer Candelario. They're like, nah, we'll let him hit free agency and then we'll give him the vet minimum. I expect him to land somewhere within the next couple of days for sure. But the Reds are on the hook, and they signed him a check for, I think it's close to $30 million for him to walk away. And I think it's intriguing, because this is something that Terry Francona said at the beginning of the year, before spring training began, whenever he was doing his introductions and all this other stuff. He said, it's about what you've done, it's about what you're going to do for us and the merit that you present to us, not about the past. Nothing is given, everything is earned. And everybody says that in sports, and that's just one of those things that it's like, okay, new regime, let's make it sound as though there's a new sheriff in town and things are going to be different. But they are. And between that and between calling up Chase Burns, I think I'm starting to buy that the Reds are more bought in to the present, and they're going to be more aggressive about winning now.
Yeah, I talked about this with Tim Daniel, and if you haven't, by the way, checked out the postcast, go check out Tim on the postcast. He's been on fire with this recent red streak. But I talked about this with Tim while you were wearing out all of the beer supply in the Carolinas on the beach on your vacation. And, the thing for me was the Reds had a decision to make. They could shoehorn him back into a roster and disrupt the groove and force a spot for him and force playing time for him and hope that it all worked out and wonder if he was ever going to hit again, or they could do what they did. And if you had asked me to bet on it, if FanDuel had odds on it, I would be going against the Reds cutting Jeimer Candelario because there was so much money tied up.
It's not what they do, right?
So I give them, it's not what they do. And I give the front office credit for acknowledging that a mistake was made, that they gave Jeimer a bad deal and they ate it and they moved on from it. And that is not business as usual. That is not how this team normally operates. That's not how the Castellinis usually let this front office run. So all of those things came together to say, we've heard some rhetoric. We've heard some hype. We've heard some whatever label you want to put on it coming out of this Reds team of late. We're a playoff team. We're going to the playoffs. We're pushing. We have an opportunity to do things. You've heard players say all of those things. Mm-hmm. And I think this particular action says to me that the front office also believes that the Reds can be a playoff team, that the Reds can, in fact, continue to challenge for this division, that the Reds are going to be relevant, and they weren't going to dampen that, derail it, change it, risk it by forcing Jeimer Candelario back on this team. And that cost them $30 million. And credit to the front office. I don't look at the signing of Jeimer Candelario and say, what were they thinking? What were they doing? They were trying to get an economy stumble into a lucky signing. It didn't work out. They admitted it. They moved on from it, and they're better off for having moved on from it. So credit to the front office for acknowledging their mistake and not forcing Jeimer Candelario back on this roster.
Right. And I think that's the important part, is that if you're new here and you're new to what the Reds do, like in years past, it feels like it would have been a given that he be in the lineup today, tomorrow, whatever, because of what number is on his check. And as much as Tito was saying things like merit and nothing given, the mantra that it seems from the front office in years past was, well, we've given a big bunch of money, so he merits playing time. It's not necessarily the other way around. And so to see them make this decision and just say, we are fine, just straight cutting him, he's gone, and we know that we have the 26 best players in the organization, that's something that's important, because I also feel like on the other side of this coin is Chase Burns, the guy who's pitching tonight, the guy who had such an electric debut against the Yankees. And I think that we will continue to see electricity from that right arm of his. I think that the reason he is up here is because they believe he can help them now. As much as you and I both said that the year probably is better off with him spending it either all or most in the minor leagues and developing, the Reds looked at this and said, that's not going to help us. And we believe that there is still a bit of development that you cannot get at AAA. And so we're like, let's just finish this off and make sure that he develops up here while still providing the value that the big league team needs with the injuries and things like that to Hunter Green and with Wade Miley going back on the injury list. And I think that there were talk about him maybe retiring now because of the injury that he sustained. It's not a Tommy John type thing, but it's a follow-up to the Tommy John surgery that just sort of, makes that not as great. And I think overall, this is a move that the Reds are like, okay, look, we got this guy. There's no reason for us to push this and say, all right, we'll bring up this Brian Van Bell guy who ultimately he looks nice in his last start. We're not going to bring up, insert random AAA player here to make a start for us. We got a guy. Let's give that start to him. And I like that messaging that it sends to the team.
And there's a couple other minor roster moves that I want to get to just real fast before we get out of this segment, Jeff, because it all falls in line with what we're talking about. The Reds starting to make decisions that look like a team that's looking towards the future in the playoffs in October. The Garrett Hampson era is over. While you were away,
he's a Cardinal now. Yeah.
Finally, they move on from this guy and bring Rhys Hines up to the active roster. It's about time. I could not believe it took as long as it did. Also, Connor Joe on the injured list right now with, believe it or not, hand, foot, and mouth disease. This is a infant disease. How this is a thing right now, I don't know, but here we are. I really would love someone to explain to me how Connor Joe has hand, foot, and mouth disease. I don't know that I've ever seen it in an adult. And I'm in the ER a lot, Jeff. But Garrett Hampson gone, and finally Rhys Hines is up. I wanted to ask you, what changed? Because suddenly did they remember that they had Rhys Hines sitting down there? Like, did Nick Kroll go, oh my God, you know what? They're Rhys Hines. Well, let's call him up.
We need a guy with power, and he has a power arm, and he's athletic. Where can we find that? Louisville. Oh yeah, we got a guy. Let's call him up. And between that, and then you're also seeing there's a picture that's making its way around Reds country on X and on Instagram and stuff like that. That Buck Farmer might be returning. He is currently a free agent. And look, I get it. I'm not sitting here telling you Buck Farmer's going to push Emilio Pagan for save opportunities and become the bullpen ace, but it's just the Reds trying. It is more evidence that they're doing exactly what they can do because people aren't trading right now. People are waiting till after the draft to make their trades. And so that's just what the Reds can do. They can go sign a free agent. Maybe that's their answer. They put Lyon Richardson on the IL, send him down to AAA, something like that, and they bring in a veteran like Buck Farmer. That's fine too. Like, they're going for it. They're trying the best that they can possibly do, and that is what is so exciting about all of this news.
Buck Farmer is actually an interesting bridge to a trade. And bear with me for just a second on this, but we're not quite to deadline time. We're not quite to buyers and sellers. We're just not quite there. But Buck Farmer could be a very interesting addition to the B group in the bullpen, right? Like a fresh arm. He's been sitting for, just a minute, not a long time, but just a minute. He's been sitting.
He pitched in spring training for the Braves, but none during the regular season.
And he's going to come in fresh. And I think he did a little stint with the Angels for a hot minute there in the minor leagues. But I don't mind this because it's really, if he's a B group arm, we've seen what Lyon Richardson can do. Sometimes good, sometimes not. I think that's Buck Farmer. Sometimes good, sometimes not. Fresh arm, and it gets you to the spot in the season where you can then go get a bullpen arm, which I think they're going to have to do in this crazy National League Central. They're going to have to go get a bullpen arm. They're going to have to go get a right-handed platoon for the outfield. We don't even have enough time today to get into everything that's going on with Jake Fraley in the outfield and all that. That's on a future show this week. But I don't mind this signing, Jeff. And I agree with you. I like that the answer is not, well, we're just going to roll with what we got. I like that that's not the answer. Let's try some things because we know what Lyon Richardson is. We know what Buck Farmer can be when Buck Farmer is good. Let's roll the dice. I don't have a problem with that.
Yep. I 100% agree with that. It's clear that the Reds, the decisions that they've made here recently, and hopefully the decisions that they make in the next couple of weeks are just proving more and more that it's about winning now. And that's not something we could have said for every season the last decade or three.
Well, I don't know if you know it, Jeff, but the Reds, they're off to Boston. It's a battle at Fenway Park. Could it go like the 75 World Series? Let's go win a series. Let's go win a series in Boston. Let's do that. And we're going to talk about that coming up next.
Shipping up to Boston. Whoa.
If you can't watch us here on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed in the audio feeds. We're really on just about every podcasting app out there. You can take us on the road. You can take us to the gym. You can take us in the car. You can take Jeff for a walk down by the river. He would love that. Make sure you're subscribed. If you find one we're not on and you need us to be on it, just message Jeff. He'll make it happen. All right. The Reds are off to Boston, Jeff Carr. And there's a lot of reasons that I'm excited about this series. The Reds are on fire. Boston, not so much. But I'm a history buff. I'm a baseball purist. And there's nothing more baseball purist than Fenway Park and games at Fenway Park. I'm excited about this series, Jeff. A lot of things are in the Reds' favor. I'm excited for another series win.
There's one thing that's not, and it's tonight. It's the fact that the Reds are facing Garrett Crochet. I mean, Garrett Crochet right now, like, if it weren't for Tarek Skubal, Garrett Crochet would be the American League Cy Young favorite. I think that Tarek Skubal probably still is going to win this thing from him, but Garrett Crochet has been phenomenal. Leads the American League in innings this year, 109 already. 109 in the third innings from Garrett Crochet. Remember, this was a guy we were talking about in the offseason we didn't want to trade for. He has a 2.06 ERA in those 109 in the third innings, and he has a strikeout per 9 to walk per 9 ratio, 11.1 strikeouts per 9, 2.6 walks per 9. Dude does not allow base runners, and dude strikes out a lot of guys. This is going to be a tough matchup. Honestly, Steve, what I'm hoping for in game one is that Chase Burns continues to do what he did against the Yankees, and that the Reds just force long at bats against Garrett Crochet, which he's not want to allow a lot of.
I want to caution people also with Chase Burns because, second start, you're going to go back, you're going to look at his line against the Yankees and be like, well, that's actually not that great. Remember that outfield play really contributed a lot to what Chase Burns' line looks like.
He sold out for that one. And
he did, and he should not have, and he did, and it is what it is. You can't go back and change it. Chase Burns actually pitched a lot better than his line in his first start. Your tape reference notwithstanding, you're right. There is some film now. There is some video, as it were, on Chase Burns for the Boston hitters to study. I am still.
Would you rather say the teams have the MP4 on them? Like, I mean,
yeah. It's not. I get it.
I like tape better.
Nobody's firing up the old VHS, Jeff. But here's what I think that it's still early enough that advantage Burns. There's not quite enough MP4 footage on Chase Burns. So I think this could be a good old fashioned pitcher's duel, actually. If Chase Burns, continues to do what Chase Burns has done at every other level, which is just continue to get better every time out. Not to say there won't be some speed bumps along the way, but this is going to be fun, Jeff. This Fenway Park potential for a pitcher's duel. You're right that Crochet is pitching really, really well. And by the way, 10-second aside, how fun was it for Sunday Night Baseball to be in Detroit last night?
That was
and
great.
Skubal on the mound. What a great game. It wasn't Yankees Red Sox on Sunday Night Baseball, and it was amazing. Just wanted to throw that out there. But you're right. Crochet is doing a thing. And if not for Skubal, it would be Crochet that we're talking about. So I'm looking forward to tonight's game. This is going to be fun tonight. Baseball is going to be fun tonight.
I think too, like it's interesting to see that Chase Burns' career begins against the typical Sunday night matchup, right? Yankees, Red Sox is his first two starts. And the fact that the Reds just celebrated the Big Red Machine, and now they're heading up to Fenway, be like, oh yeah, by the way, we remember that team. I'm very bullish on this series, and I think that this is a chance. Like, as long as I think that this first game is going to be tough, but the Reds have a chance to win this series and go into Philadelphia with a little bit of breathing room. Not to say breathing room as far as like them versus the Phillies. The Phillies look like the team that's going to win the NL East this year, but it's going to be a really tough weekend series, coming off July 4th and all this other stuff. I think that ultimately, if they can just win 2 out of 3 here in Boston, then whatever they do this weekend is a bit of, gravy. If it's 1 out of 3, whatevs. If it's 2 out of 3, holy crap. If they get swept, we're not going to lose our minds because of how they have played here recently. They can play with a lot of house money depending on how they face this Boston Red Sox team, which, by the way, is without its main hitter now because they traded him to San Francisco. Rafael Devers no longer with the Boston Red Sox. Don't know if you heard anything about that. I think you probably did. But I think overall it's going to be the kind of series that the Reds really need to press with their lineup, having good at bats, taking lots of pitches. Let's force this Red Sox team to really get into its bullpen that ultimately it's Aroldis Chapman. He's still pitching like he's always pitched. But outside of him, kind of feels like you can get at these guys. So I really want to see how this lineup can continue to have good at bats and how Chase Burns can continue his torrid start to his career, which we will talk a lot more on tomorrow's podcast about, because I got some questions as to how the Reds are going to treat the rest of his season. And it's not going to be, tonight's start notwithstanding, I don't think it's going to change based on how he pitches tonight. But I think that there are some interesting decisions moving forward with him. Plus, we're going to begin to look at some draft prospects, some guys that the Reds could pick, because there's an interesting hitter that the Reds are being mocked to pick right now who has at least some comparison with Joey Votto. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's Locked On Reds podcast. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show and being with us. Glad to be back together. Like we said last week, it was a solo show, whether it was me or Steve. It was never us together, but we're back, baby, talking about this Reds team every single day. Steve, take us away.
That's going to do it for us. Make sure you go check out the Locked On MLB feed. You got Sully over there. He's covering things on a national perspective. He has got you covered with his humor, his insight. And then also MLB Game Night. If you haven't checked that out yet, they watch every single game every single day so that you don't have to. You can get all your recaps over there. It's in the Locked On MLB feed. Lots of great stuff there. Go check it out and make sure you're subscribed here. We got a lot of stuff coming your way. We're talking about the draft. There's going to be some scouts cycling through here. We got a couple other special guests maybe popping in this week. You're going to want to make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, we're going to keep gathering up the news, the notes, the rumors, the reports, the information. We're going to bring it all right back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day. I am sending an email right now to Gabby over at Locked On Red Sox. She needs to know that the Reds won the 1975 World Series. They don't seem to know that in Boston.